am I okay with the age difference?
Yeah.
Okay, and that may seem kind of obvious because it's like, well, you must be if you're entertaining it. But again, I love a lot of people to come into ask us these questions, and they're talking about how uncomfortable they are, or they have trouble thinking that the man is capable in arguments because they're just thinking about the fact that when you're younger than me, you don't have as much experience as me. And that's a serious question you need to ask yourself.
Or even the other way, they may think that you're too old and you're not in touch with, this time or decade or whatever.
Well, and then it's kind of like, well, here's one thing. So when we were getting together, that's a question I had to ask myself was, okay, I love Cacie. I want to be with her. I want to marry her. But I gotta be honest with myself about this. Is this gonna be a problem for me someday? Because when we first got married, it was like, okay, nobody can tell. Nobody still generally can tell about age difference. But I'm just saying, like, at that moment in time, no one really knew unless you would tell them, and there wasn't much difference. So, it's okay, it's cool. But then I wanted to look forward and say, okay, Jalen, are you gonna care later?
Yeah.
Are you gonna care once y'all start getting older? Are you gonna be embarrassed? Are you gonna feel weird about it? And I asked myself all these questions, and the answer was repeatedly no. I legitimately didn't care.
And we talked about it between each other, honestly. It didn't scare me because of what I already believed, but I did have to be honest and say, am I okay with being in a relationship with a younger man? Because one, I didn't want to feel from you that you were holding back, I don't know, living your life or doing things that you want to do because you may feel like I wasn't able to keep up with you or something like that. I didn't want you to be embarrassed if at any point I started looking older than you, which that's not gonna happen. But I had to think about these things.
All right, question number 2, and this is a very, very practical, important one, is do you want children?
Yeah.
And then part B of that is, when do you want them? And I guess part C of that is, how many do you want? Now, this is the conversation that everybody should have before getting married to someone. If you're going to be serious in a relationship, you need to know, do you want a family? Do you plan on starting a family? Are you dealing with anything in your body that would prevent you medically? And that can happen at any age. So I'm saying everybody needs to ask these questions and handle these questions. But it's definitely something that you want to talk about with her, an age gap. And it's not just because, oh, well, if the woman's older, then she can't have children. That's not across the board in any way true. But what I am saying is, when someone is in a different phase of life than you, because that's just something that's actually true. When there's a great deal of years between you, they are in a different part of life. And it's not even about physically, it's about mentally.
Yeah.
And so you need to ask this person, well, how do you feel about children? Do you want children? And a lot of times people will go along with things and say, yeah, well, but you need to really settle these things now. Because sometimes you make assumptions because, hey, we're in the same stage of development, we're going through the same things in life, having the same experiences, we think the same way. But these are things you need to ask and say, well, at this stage in your life, do you still want children? And then if you are someone who's concerned because you feel like your biological clock is ticking, okay, does that mean that as soon as we get married, you want to have children immediately? Do I want to have children immediately? Things like that. Now, when we got married, neither one of us were afraid of Cacie's ability to have children.
But again, that has a lot to do with how we were brought up, what our foundational faith is.
Yeah.
And we talked extensively about that. We even put down the amount of children that we wanted, and we came to an agreement on that. So getting married, having children wasn't a mystery to us. It wasn't something that we'll talk about later down the road. And, I was 34 years old when I got married. And when we got married, I was 34. And some people will be like, well, girl, you need to go ahead and just get pregnant. But I knew that we
didn't want to do that.
We didn't want to do that right away. We wanted to wait.
Yeah.
And so we waited 4 years to get pregnant with JJ.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we did.
Huh. Wow.
To get pregnant with JJ. And it was an immediate situation. It didn't take no time to get pregnant. And we have a very healthy and beautiful son. He'd be 2 years old this coming August. So don't push it all to the side. Talk about it. If you're a younger man and you want to have a family, and she's at that stage of life where she's like, no, I don't want to have kids, or I can't have kids, or I had kids already, or whatever case may be, don't go in and thinking that you're going to change her mind once you get married. Talk about that.
All right, number 3 question, and this is, again, you want to ask yourself, what do we share in common? The reason why this question is important here, found we share in common, is, again, logistically, when you're dealing with people with a larger age gap. And we got to find an age gap, because some people come to us like, he's 1 year younger than me, he's 3 months younger. That's not an age gap. I'm sorry, it's not. But when you're dealing with something, I don't know, I'll pick a number, 7 years beyond, something like that.
Yeah.
There are certain things, ways that you perceive life, the world, and things like that, and also just being in different phase of life, and there's things that the older person has done that you just haven't had a chance to do. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what do we have in common? What do we see eye to eye on? And that's what I was saying, you were mentioning before about the way we were raised, the church we were raised up in, the way that we believe, our beliefs on the word and Jesus. Those are things that we share in common. We have a lot of the same, those views, things like that. We have the same philosophical views about the world. We have the same political views. We have the same spiritual views. Those are things that we share in common that kind of transcend age. In all reality, the what do we share in common is a question for every relationship, in all honesty. But we're including it here because that's something that you'll end up blaming on the age gap when y'all end up having these irreconcilable differences, as they call them. So because there are going to be stark differences when there's a larger age gap, you are going to want to find out, what do we share in common? What do we see the same? Because that's going to be your meeting ground. All right, number 4. The question you want to ask yourself is, why do you want to be in this relationship?
Yeah.
And this is an important one, because sometimes we get in contact with people who are like, yeah, I'm in a relationship with a younger man just like you should not be married. It's like, yeah, it's the best relationship I've ever been in. I'm so happy. And younger men are better. They're better at sex, and they love the woman more. They're more passionate, and they're more respectful, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, we're crossing over into what I mentioned before about that whole fetish territory, where you're trying to just experiment with something new. And that's what you need to ask yourself. All right, are you wanting to be in a relationship with this age gap person because of the age gap? An older woman is not a prize to be conquered. Like, oh, hey, I did this. Let me check off this mark that I got with a woman.
Yeah, so don't get into an age gap relationship to boost your self-esteem. Basically, don't do that, because you're going to hurt yourself and the person also. But it won't last, you know, because that stuff fizzles out. You see that a lot, you know, the younger, especially older women want to be with younger men because it makes them feel good. They're still trying to be 20 when they're actually 55. You know, they're not ready to step into mature womanhood, and they're trying to hang on. And you see that a lot of times, or they want that status of being a cougar. I hate that term. Like, I don't like that term cougar. Like, it's to me, it's just so disrespectful. Some women like that, I don't. But they like that prowess. Like, I have this dominating ability over boys, basically, not a man. So that they won't deal with a real man. They'll deal with boys that need that kind of attention. For whatever reason, don't do it for those reasons, because it will break you, and it's not going to be a good thing.
And so what is the right reason to get in an age gap relationship? Reasons have nothing to do with the age gap. Because at the end of the day, it's still a marriage. It's still the principle. The reasons why you get into a marriage is to glorify God.